The following program is suitable for general audience of any age. We would like to remind our viewers that the views expressed in this program by our participating guests are solely viewpoints of them who take part and does not reflect the views and beliefs of the Derana Media Network.
Hello, and welcome to a fresh episode of Gen XYZ, where we bring forth interesting youth-centric topics for all the youth in the society, where we bring about impact through the conversations that we take on from here onwards. So today's topic is also very interesting because I think it is not new, but is rather evolving in the current concept. So that is youth on climate. And now to bring forth an interesting conversation about this aspect, I do have Mr. Unit Vijayanaika, the co-founder and director of technology at the Climate Intelligence Network. Welcome you to today's program.
Hi, Prasansa. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So if I could first go with the basics of, I believe, climate. I think this is a conversation that we usually have in the current landscape when it comes to the youth, even the adults as well. Because some have a question as to if climate is just the climate, or rather, is it the weather that we, face with? So I think a clear identification of these two aspects will help us to dive into what the Climate Intelligence Network does as well. If you can take us through that.
Yeah, you mentioned that it is a heavily discussed topic during these days in the local context as well. But what a lot of people don't realize is that when it comes to our local news, most of the headlines are surrounding around the weather. We don't see much attention focusing on the climate. So now we come to the question, what's weather, what is climate, right? So we really need to figure out the difference between these two things, because weather is what you hear on the news, the prediction, whether it will rain tomorrow, whether it's dry, whether it's cloudy, sunny, what's the temperature. This is what you hear in the weather report, right? But climate is much more complex. Climate is a pattern of weather, a pattern in a local area. It can be a long-term thing. Sometimes, so for an accurate climate prediction to be made, there needs to be at least 30 years of data from weather predictions, from weather data and weather satellites. So when we say weather, we are talking about what we are going to feel, what we are going to have tomorrow, but climate is a very long-term thing. So I think that answers the question.
Of course. Now, I think that is the normal idea that we have, because I think in a day-to-day basis, we come about with the aspects of weather. But then again, when it comes to climate change, we always have a question, what really is climate change and what it is to us, how it matters to the citizens in Sri Lanka, or specifically the youth, as we are discussing youth on climate. So what is specifically climate change? Is it something that we could drastically see and feel in our day-to-day lives, or is it something novel that people still try to understand and adapt with?
Yeah. I feel like people in Sri Lanka are really starting to notice a difference. Weather patterns are changing. If you know, most farmers who were used to farming and planning their crops according to the Yala and Maha seasons, the monsoon seasons, now they're having a hard time predicting when the rains would start. So we have different zones in Sri Lanka. We have the wet zones, we have the dry zones. In the wet zones, we have like floods, and in the dry zones, we are having droughts. So it's like the wet areas are getting even more rain, and the dry areas are getting less and less rain. So there's an increase in the polarization. So what's happening is that because of these long-term effects of increase in the climate, in the temperature, in the weather patterns, because of the increase in temperature and the long-term change of the climate, the weather patterns are changing. And people are having farmers, fishermen, they're having a hard time predicting on how to have their crops, because the water patterns are changing. The rivers and the lakes in Sri Lanka are having a hard time coping up with sudden floods. That's why we have sudden flash floods, and that's why we have severe droughts. So people are starting to notice that something is wrong. And even in Colombo, Kandy, some of the urban areas, people are starting to notice an increase in the temperature. Like, even though it might say 29, 30, you're starting to feel it more. You feel it's getting worse. So this is the change that we are feeling, and this is because of climate change.
Right. So now when it comes to this climate change that everyone's understanding, I believe people are trying ways and means to actually work around it. Like, how should I work around my daily routines to adapt to this climate change? Maybe specifically when it comes to crop cultivation, specifically, since we Sri Lankans go ahead with that for the longest of time and most drastically as well. Now, in the current context, I believe the most recent past, we had Cyclone Ditwa. And that's one of the most prominent climate changes that we went through across and experienced as well. So since that aspect, I would say, from that period onwards to this, do you feel like people are taking an active engagement in doing something different about how they adapt to climate change?
I don't think so, because see, the problem is whenever some natural disaster happens, people would blame it on God, people would blame it on some problem, but no one's actually connecting the weather patterns to the long-term climate change. Some disaster would happen, people talk about it during that time, and once things go back to normal, it's forgotten. But what people are not realizing is that this continuous onset of natural disasters. Ditwa, for example, this was Sri Lanka's the biggest natural disaster Sri Lanka has faced after the tsunami.
Yeah.
Over 600 people lost their lives and massive infrastructure damage. And what scientists have shown is that because of climate change, because of the increase in temperature and the change in weather patterns, these cyclones, because we are near the Bay of Bengal, cyclones, this is kind of normal. But what's changing is that the rain that is occurring because of these cyclones has increased in severity. And some people say at least 160% increase in the severity of these rains. And that's why Sri Lanka the land couldn't withstand that level of water. So, coming back to your question, are people doing anything about it? This is the problem, is that while these are happening, people are not connecting the real data that we are having, the real problems that we are facing to climate change. It is some other weather thing that occurred, natural disaster that occurred. People are not connecting the problem to climate change. That is the problem we are facing now.
Right. So I think ever since that happened, still people are processing the idea of climate change and ways and means. But now I think we can connect the dot of climate change to the climate intelligence network as well. I think you all understood a loophole and a gap between how it is understood, navigated, and executed as well. So since we spoke about climate change, I think the basics that we should, like you and I and the youth should know. I think if you can take us through what the Climate Intelligence Network is and how this was brought forward with regards to the term of climate change as well.
So a quick brief of the Climate Intelligence Network. So we are building an island-wide network of citizen scientists, students, young people, researchers, scientists. We're building an island-wide network of all of these different kinds of people and different communities who are able to contribute data to citizen science. We will be talking about citizen science in the future in a few other questions, but we are building this network of people who are actively contributing data from their local neighborhoods, from their local communities, and we are using this data to build data sets that are given to research organizations, to think tanks, or even government organizations, and they can use this data to actively drive climate policy that is based on real ground level situations. So that's what the Climate Intelligence Network is doing. And sorry, you asked another question.
Yeah, like how does, I think I'll ask a follow-up
Yeah.
question to that actually. How does the youth actually can involve, rather the youth, I would say like commonly the citizens of Sri Lanka with this new initiative where data has been involved. And I believe the more data you get from different types of people from different areas of the island, the more impactful it is.
Yeah.
So how do you connect the day-to-day lifestyle of a citizen and their information to the Climate Intelligence Network?
Okay, that's a good question. So the reason why the Climate Intelligence Network was formed was because there is two clear problems in Sri Lanka or in countries like Sri Lanka in the global south that we identified. One is there is a gap between real data and climate related decision making. So the governments or the organizations that are making these decisions are not basing these decisions on actual real-time data that is being generated from the ground. And another problem that we have is young people feel like they have no say in the decisions that are being made. So because young people, these are people who are in rural areas, their parents are farmers, their parents are fishermen, and they can see that their families are being affected. And these decisions are supposed to benefit these people. But do we see that happening? So the youth are feeling frustrated because they have no say. So these are the two problems that we identified. And that's why the Climate Intelligence Network was formed, because we saw, okay, there is a data gap. There is a youth power gap. People feel like they have no way in contributing to climate action. So what we came up with was this concept called Mission 1.5, which is the game that we are building. So what it basically does is it gives young people or young adults, even school children around the country a gamified way of contributing data. It can be, have you spotted an invasive species in your local lake? Did you hear a unique bird call? It can be all sorts of things which we'll be talking about, and they can contribute this data, and this data, when aggregated, forms valuable data sets that research organizations can use to actively make more impactful climate related decisions.
All right. So that's actually wonderful to see like a new concept. I think gamifying the entire process, I think has a lot of engagement, and it's novel, and it makes you feel like, okay, this is not the ordinary climate change that we know. So I should put in my data and information and, go through that. I think that's a new innovative aspect. So before I actually ask about the mission 1.5, I believe. Yes. I think I should ask about the Climate Intelligence Network, how the work scope is, like your team, how you all came about from the formation to what you all are now, and how you all came up with the concept of Mission 1.5 as well. But I think I'm going to go deep into Mission 1.5 after our break, of course. But if you can take us through the team, how you all came about to this current status.
So it was first, it was me, my friend Kaif, and he had the initial idea, and then he reached out to me because I'm a software engineer, I work in tech. So because we need to actively build the technical digital infrastructure to connect the people with the decision makers. So that's where our connection happened. And then, of course, we reached out. We had other friends who were involved in environmental conservation or biodiversity, and we brought them in as well. So we have the core team. So the core team is what runs the core functionalities of Mission 1.5 and also the Climate Intelligence Network, where we are connecting with partner organizations, reaching out to young people around the districts. A lot of that is happening. So we have the core team, but our organization doesn't function like a typical volunteer or youth organization that has a member base, right? So we have a network. So we have our network members can be young people in districts or it can be organizations as well. So these organizations, young people in different districts, they are partner members of our network, and we have programs with them. We had a program called YCAT, which was called the Youth Climate Action Teams. We had teams in each district, and they have got the opportunity to talk about the most pressing issues that they're facing in terms of climate, in terms of weather, and they get to contribute this information, the data, the real world situation that they're facing, and they contribute that to the Climate Intelligence Network. And the Climate Intelligence Network connects these real world scenarios, real world people, real world the feelings that these people are feeling with government bodies, with organizations like UNICEF. And so that's the connection we are making.
Amazing. I think that's wonderful because yours started with a simple idea, but then again, bringing forth, different people with different backgrounds and interconnecting it to a common project where it's actually making a bigger impact in terms of the grassroots levels as well as a whole in Sri Lanka. So that's amazing. So I would ask more questions about Mission 1.5, of course, but before that, we need to run for a short commercial break. And also wanted to mention that we are right here at Cafe Brit, and it is located at Ward Place. So you can do experience the amazing ambience and the great food that they offer. And let's run for a short commercial break. This is Gen XYZ at Ada Derana News Channel. Welcome back to Gen XYZ, and we are in conversation with Mr. Yuneth, who is the co-founder and director of technologies at the Climate Intelligence Network. And we are here at Cafe Brit, so you do need to visit here as well. But now we are getting into Mission 1.5, of course, because that is something very interesting when I really got to know about it and also heard it before we got into the program as well. So what made you all understand that gamifying this kind of concept would be the ideal approach than the ordinary traditional mechanisms we already have in our landscape?
Have you heard of Pokemon Go?
Yes, I do.
Okay. A bit controversial,
Yes.
But it really got people to go out into the world and explore places, right? Because they were going around looking for Pokemons. And so similar concept we are bringing through Mission 1.5. So speaking of gamification, there was a situation, a scenario in Finland where they organized a bird sound recording competition / game, like a campaign. And it brought together around 140,000 different young people. And at the end of the campaign, they had collected over 3 million different recordings. And this was because it was a game, right? It was young people could go around, find data points, collect, record, or photos, videos, audio, and tag it with their GPS location and submit it. And they get points for that. So this was proven in Finland. And even in Japan, there was a game called Biome, where a large number of people got together to submit data related to biodiversity. So in the young people's head, it's not okay, I'm submitting data for a research. It's like I'm completing a mission and I'm getting points. And that's the benefit of gamification. We remove that complexity of research, of data, of climate. We remove that complexity and make it fun for young people to just go out and find missions. It's like, so on Mission 1.5, you'll find a map and you can go around. You have missions, you can go explore missions. You have geocaches, which are like hidden locations which you have to unlock.
So they feel like they are in a game.
Yes.
They're living a game.
We make the real world a game for them.
Okay.
And we feel like, and it has been proven, for example, there's an app called iNaturalist, which a lot of advanced users like scientists use as well, and also young people use as well. So this has produced millions and millions of data points related to animals, species, insects, whatever. So basically what happens in iNaturalist is you take a photo of something you spot. It could be a plant, it could be an animal, it could be an insect. You take a photo and you submit it. And this has aggregated millions of data that is actively being used in real world research. And so gamification works, right? So what we are trying to bring that into Mission 1.5 so that young people feel like they're playing a game. And you could see our contribution dashboard as well. You can see how much data you've contributed. You can see how this is contributing to climate action as well. So it's a very rewarding experience, both for people who like to play games and also for people who like to contribute to the environment. So it works.
Yeah, I hope it works even more and more people gets to know about it as well, because it's a novel concept. And I feel like when it's simplified, even the people who are not really, fascinated about data or who's not into the quantitative stuff really gets into the point where they wanted to get into this and support with the whole concept. So now the connection point in terms of Mission 1.5 and also the first aspect we were talking about, climate change that is happening in Sri Lanka. How do you all connect these two concepts, I think, in terms of making sure that Mission 1.5 actually helps through the Sri Lankan climate change initiatives or changes per se and everything about it?
So Mission 1.5 is a very broad app. So the main concept is climate change, but it is also focusing on environmental conservation and biodiversity and all of these other subtopics as well. So I'm sorry, I forgot the question.
Yeah, it was more like into how the gap was bridging, like in terms of Mission 1.5.
Yeah, okay. So like I said, young people are contributing data, right? So for example, Sounds of Nature is one mission that we had. So basically what you have to do is you have to go out into your backyard, whether you're in a village, whether you're in an urban area, go out into your backyard, go outside and record 2 minutes of audio of some animals you can hear.
Wow, that's simple.
Right? Yeah, that's simple.
Yeah.
Just bird calls or even insect sounds. You can hear so many sounds. And that's all the young person is doing, right? You're just, with your GPS location, you're submitting this data point and you get points for that. Now, but what's happening behind the scene is that, of course, we have a first level of verification, which, we have to take out the garbage data because there's a possibility of unwanted data coming in. And we have to get rid of that. But after that, then we have real humans actually verifying this data. And then once the data is verified, and once we have a large enough data set, so what zoologists, what biologists can identify is that from these bird call sounds, from these bird call recordings, you can identify species. You can identify which bird is this coming from, which insect is this coming from. And when that is tagged to GPS locations, you can identify, you can recognize where these species are, where have the species population reduced, have they migrated to different areas. So there's a lot of different data that you can, a lot of different information that you can gather from a single data set like this. And so that's an example of what one mission can do to help researchers identify what is happening on the ground. So likewise, there are very many different missions on this app that you can contribute to, from weather patterns to temperature to biodiversity and that. So this data is gathered and verified and authenticated, and we pass on these gathered data sets to the research organizations that requested these. It can be think tanks, or it can be UN organizations, it can be government bodies, and they can use that data and analyze this data and gather information from this, and they can make real world decisions related to climate, related to weather, related to environment based on this data. So that's the connection we are making.
Right. I think that is something that the government actually should utilize as well, in terms of whatever that is coming through in the Sri Lankan climate change and the context. And I think supporting the livelihoods of the Sri Lankan citizens as well. Now, in that context, now, I loved how it is the simple things that you all have in Mission 1.5, like simple ways to get the engagement, and also, in the other hand, get the data collected. Now, in that aspect, how do you feel like is the response to this new initiative? Because it's new, as we discussed, and it's a whole new concept, but also it is helping something in the long run. And I'm pretty sure this is something that is that should be known for a greater level as well. So how is the involvement at the current context?
Yeah. So currently we've tried this out through, I mentioned we did a project called YCAT.
Yeah.
So what we did was we had identified climate vulnerable districts, and we had initiated teams, youth climate action teams in all of these districts. And we went to these districts and we conducted workshops. And during these workshops, we tested out whether people are going to be involved in missions like this. And so far the feedback has been great. I mean, we tried out the Sounds of Nature mission I just mentioned, where you go take recordings of birds, right? So we tested it out and people really like to do it. I mean, it's something that gets people out of their houses. It connects you with your local surroundings, and it helps you identify things you haven't seen before in your surroundings, and you actually start to feel whether changes are happening to your local species populations. So people are actively involved in missions like this, and we hope to bring this user base onto the app as well.
Amazing. I think more of the people love it when there's so much of engagement in the simple steps. And I think something that you all worked around as per the ideology and the concept is, after Cyclone Ditwa, I think you all partnered with the World Food Program as well to mobilize volunteers for the rapid needs assessment as well. So in that situation, now this was something that was really essential at that point, and you all were able to cater that requirement. So in that context, was this something similar to Mission 1.5, or was this something that you were directly working around with the data sets that you all already accumulated?
So the concept is similar. Of course, there was no gamification because this was post-disaster.
Yes.
There was these were people in divisional secretariats who were mobilized to gather data. There was no gamification. This was volunteers that the WFP had gathered through other organizations like Red Cross or Sarvodaya. So it was a large network of people from 201 divisional secretariats around the country. And but the concept is the same, even though there was no gamification. The concept is the same. It is people in their communities collecting data and passing that data to an aggregating organization. So where we supported by coordinating all these volunteer bodies, and we supported trilingually. I mean, that's one of the unique aspects of the Climate Intelligence Network. We try to keep all our communications trilingual, because I think one problem that we've noticed is all these conversations, discussions related to climate really
happens in English.
In English,
Yes.
in Colombo, all the urban areas, the people who are actually facing the problem are not getting the right idea. They're not being educated on this properly. So we did it trilingually, and we were able to generate around 106,000 points of data. This was related to the current conditions in the area, how many people are displaced, how many students are displaced, what was the food situation, what's the sanitary situation. So it was a huge, a big set of data that was coming from all of these divisional secretariats, and we were able to be part of this through WFP, and it was a really great experience, also a sad experience, I mean, but we got to see how, if people come together, how much data we can accumulate and how impactful that data can be.
Yes, I think that impactful project brought forward, I think, more spirit and motivation to inculcate different aspects and try out different notions as well. So before we head into the break, I have one more question now. You all have like a plethora of ideas and initiatives and innovations coming about. So how does it look like in terms of the support that you all are receiving for this new initiative, being in the processes, being when it comes to the data collection, and also when you're approaching like think tanks, maybe the government and different organizations? How does the support look like?
Yeah, so a lot of organizations like UN organizations, they really like the idea, and they've been funding some of our, especially UNICEF, has been funding some of our organization of our projects, like ELCOI and YCATS, and they've funded, and government organizations, government secretariats have been involved in some of our projects as well. And a lot of private organizations are actually coming on board, because private organizations being on board is part of our concept. It's needed for us to sustain this model. So a lot of private organizations have been funding our projects as well. They've been giving us some micro grants to fund out some of our small projects, but the feedback has been great so far.
Amazing. I think you all are looking forward to expand these partnerships and also the funding as well, because this is something that needs to be evolving. And I think given that our world is constantly changing, climate change is going to be, I think, more aggressive in the upcoming years with global warming and everything happening. And I think each and every one of us, though we don't know that we are being directly affected, we are definitely, maybe because of the climate change, our occupations are disrupted, or the way we commute. Likewise, those are the simple things, I believe. So I think we are going to discuss more on the Climate Intelligence Network, what they bring to the society and their accomplishments in terms of projects as well, after the short commercial break. But also to remind you that we are at Cafe Brit on Ward's Place. So you can visit here and experience the beautiful ambience and also the amazing food. We will join you right after this commercial break. This is Gen XYZ at the Derana News channel. Welcome back yet again to Gen XYZ on the Derana News channel, where we were discussing about how the Climate Intelligence Network is bringing forth the amazing initiatives in terms of the aspects of climate change as well. So I think we do have a fresh face over here. Joining with me is my co-host, yes, Fleming Fernando, and I think he will be diverting into the latter part as well in terms of the interesting aspects that he would love to ask from Mr. Unit as well. So before that, I think one question that I really want to ask from you is in terms of the support, and now in terms of the different types of events that you all organize as well. So one thing that got highlighted in terms of when I was referring to whatever that you all have done was you all co-organizing the ELCOI Sri Lanka 2025 with IOM and also UNICEF with around 140 youth delegates. So that's impressive. And for starters, I think this is big as well. And being able to be a part of that kind of an initiative and making sure that the youth gets that steadfast and direct understanding about certain aspects relating to climate change. And of course, I believe you all were able to promote your network as well. So how was this experience look like?
So yeah, I mean, Climate Intelligence Network is a very young organization. We started late 2024. So it's been around 1 year and a few months. So getting the opportunity to organize LCOI. So, I mean, what is LCOI? So first of all, you might have heard of COP, the Conference of Parties, where all the governments get together and discuss climate change, right? So, but in parallel to COP, there is also COI, which is the Conference of Youth. And like COI, there are regional conferences of youth, and LCOI is the local conference of youth, which is where each country, they organize their own conference, and at the end of the conference, at the end of the LCOI, we produce the National Youth Statement, which is the collective agreements, collective discussions, collective decisions of all the youth delegates had participated in this conference, and we present that at COP, right? So it was quite a privilege to be able to organize this. We partnered with 3 other organizations, and together we brought 2 delegates from each district, and they were fully funded delegates. And then we also got more delegates who wanted to participate, and in total there were around 140 delegates representing all 25 districts of the country. And what was most unique about this conference was that it was a fully trilingual conference. So we talked about the gap between youth and climate decision making, right? So one of the biggest reasons for this is communication, the lack of trilingual communication in terms of climate change or education. And also because some of these delegates that took part had actually not had such opportunities because of economic hardships. And so we have to be thankful for organizations like UNICEF and IOM, because it was because of their funding that we were able to fund the 2-day conference for all these delegates. So organizing this, bringing all of them together and hearing their stories, hearing their thoughts about climate change, how they want to contribute, it was quite a moving experience. It was an exciting experience. And yeah, it was a wonderful milestone for the Climate Intelligence Network.
As you were mentioning, Mr. Yunet, when we get to see, these Sri Lankan youth-led initiatives are being appreciated in the global stages, it is not just for you and me, for everyone who just got interest on the sustainable development goals, the climate actions, the climate change and everything. It is good for them to take the next step to work towards it. So if there can be someone who really thinks, what I can do towards this, how can I make a change when it comes to climate changes, climate actions. So what do you have to tell to those people? Where can they start from?
So this problem was something that actually, as I mentioned, was one of the founding problems of the Climate Intelligence Network, which is what youth have no way to get involved in climate action, right? So this is a very prevalent situation where young people in the country are like, well, how can I contribute? How can I be part of this? Like, I really want to contribute to climate action. I want to contribute to environmental conservation, but how can I do that? So there are many different ways you can be part of climate action. And if you're talking about the Climate Intelligence Network, like I said, we are a network of organizations and young members around the country, but you don't have to necessarily be part of what we do, right? We are also willing to support projects within your communities that you are doing. So for example, through YCAT, we selected a few projects and we provided micro grants for people who are doing interesting projects around the country. And even through LCOI, that we selected a few projects that they were doing in their communities, and we helped fund some of these projects. So you can do your own project because you understand the situation in your community. You understand what your farmers, what your fishermen are facing. So you can organize something in your community, and we can help support it by providing you the resources, the resource people. And if you need funds, maybe we can support with that as well. And that's one way you can contribute. But what we really want you to join is Mission 1.5, which is the game that we are building. And if you're unable to organize or create a community in your local neighborhood, that's fine. You can always, I think everyone, our digital penetration has increased a lot after COVID.
Obviously.
So most young people have a mobile phone, have a smartphone. So if you're able to download the app, you can log into this, find a mission around your area, because there's missions all around the country. There are missions all in all sorts of different ways that you can contribute. And you can find some way to contribute, and you can contribute data, you can contribute information, you can tell about your story. Because one of the most important things that actually drive climate action is climate storytelling. Because we want people to tell us what they feel, how they're being impacted. And because it's the emotions that actually drive action. Because just data, just numbers, just facts, sure, it can drive research, it can help policy makers make decisions. But what actually helps is if you tell us what you're actually feeling. So there's so many ways you can contribute.
Obviously. So that means if someone really got this interest to start something on this, there's ample of opportunities and platforms that they can utilize and get into this. So Mission 1.5 is also one of them. And also, as there are a particular set of people who want to start from somewhere and do something betterment for this world, there can be someone who thinks, can this app, do this change that we are, talking about? What is the biggest comeback that you have towards them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a valid skepticism. I mean, a lot of people think, okay, wait, there's a problem, they make an app. What can an app really do, right? But this is a globally validated solution. It's not a hypothesis that we came up with. We did the research. And what it has shown is that organizations like iNaturalist and, apps like iNaturalist, eBird, or games like this, citizen science campaigns like this have actually proven that when people come together and contribute even one single point of data, that together can create a large data set that's very valuable and very impactful, and it will have measurable impact, measurable benefits in terms of conservation and climate action.
All right. I think that was a wonderful question directed by Fleming, of course, in terms of how there would be misconceptions, and also trying a new idea is always something challenging as well. Now, we discussed about how we all brought forward new ideas, even if this is a young initiative as well. Now, when we look into the futuristic aspect, what do you think is going to be brought forward by the Climate Intelligence Network? And also, I think the pretty interesting Mission 1.5, of course.
So, looking into the future, what we really want to establish is this sustainable model where young people around the country are contributing with information that they have, and where this information is driving real world decision making. So we want to have that model established and grounded. And through this model, through the Climate Intelligence Network, we want young people who are actually actively facing the brunt of climate change, whose families are facing the brunt of climate change, to come forward. And we want to be the platform where they bring out their stories, and where these stories are converted into active policies that help make their lives better. So that's the future that we are looking at.
Amazing. That means getting everyone involved and making sure that even the little things that, taking a picture like you mentioned in Mission 1.5, and simple actions which will actually gratify or augment in a better way to help the society. And of course, the data will help you make sure that you work around with the challenges, find solutions in the long run. So it's pretty interesting to see that the Climate Intelligence Network is bringing forward something that where the youth can get involved directly with the most interesting ways, and of course, for the betterment of the society. So I think I really need to thank you, Mr. Yuneth Wijenaika, the co-founder and director of technology at the Climate Intelligence Network. Thank you so much for bringing forward this initiative, of course, and also for joining us and taking us through this wonderful conversation about the wonderful aspects. And I hope that you will bring about more interesting aspects like Mission 1.5.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you so much
Yes.
for having the organization and giving us this platform. Yeah, we're looking forward to doing some really great stuff.
Fingers crossed, and we are looking forward for it as well. So we also need to thank Cafe Brit for giving us this wonderful venue in terms of, I think now we moved on to a new venue with a new setup, and you can see that the ambience is pretty cool, and obviously the food is really, really great, which we are going to try after this. So please do check into our next episode, which will be featuring next week, same time, at a different place with a different guest, of course. So you were watching Gen XYZ on Other Derana News channel. We will see you again next week at the same time.
I live my day as if it was the last. Live my day as if there was no past. Doing it all night, all summer. Doing it the